Hello, thanks for watching this video. It's Paul Wilkinson here. I thought it might be quite nice to do a few videos about some of my musical heroes and different musical styles and things that have influenced me. There's one musician that has been a big influence on me and since I was a boy, and that is the American pianist and composer and essentially an improviser, Keith Jarrett. I've been a fan of Keith Jarrett's music since I was very young. I suppose teenager, I would suspect, about that age. Initially first with the Cologne concert. In fact, it's worth saying, if you can see here, that a lot of my CDs, this side is very much Keith Jarrett orientated, so you get an idea of how much of a fan I am of his music. Having said that, I don't listen to it as much as in the last few years, in the last 4 or 5 years, as I used to do, but I did used to listen to Keith a lot in my teens and early 20s, and I've been fortunate enough to see him live a number of times. So as I said, yeah, the first concert I really got into was the Cologne concert, which came out in 1975, this improvised concert. Keith had not slept for 2 nights. He says that the piano was, the wrong piano was ordered. He didn't like the piano, it sounded tinny. But what they produced was wonderful music. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect probably not Keith's favourite work. I know myself as a musician, you're always developing, and a recording is essentially just a snapshot of how you feel at that moment. So Keith has developed greatly over the years as a pianist and as an improviser, doing these sort of 2-half concerts where he would improvise in the first half, and then in the second half do another sort of long improvisation. That has changed in the last few years when he's done these smaller improvised concerts. So yeah, I got into the Cologne concert first because there's many strands to Keith Jarrett's output, really, I suppose. He's essentially an improviser, but then he has this Standish Trio, which they are no more now due to Gary Peacock's age. The bass player doesn't really travel much nowadays, so the trio's no more really, but they've got an amazing body of work which we can talk a little bit about, some of my favourites from that. Then also we've got, alongside of that, we've got things like the European Quartet, and then the American Quartet as well, which are completely different, and he was running both of those quartets at the same time. Fascinating to hear that music. So let me just delve in and get a few CDs that you might find interesting. So the whole idea of this is that maybe you'll go check out some of these recordings. I'm old-fashioned, I suppose. I have them on CD, but some of you may use Spotify, if indeed his music is on Spotify. I'm not sure whether it's been taken off actually, but you need to investigate that. Also, you could, if you're a vinyl buff, of course, they sound amazing on vinyl, because the record label that Keith Jarrett is on is called ECM Records. When Keith Jarrett and Manfred Eicher owns ECM Records, they only ever shook hands on it, so at any point any of them could walk away. There's not a written contract at all, which I find wonderful. So I think Keith has said that the packages that they release are the work of 2 people, and I think that really shows. There's a splendid body of work from Keith Jarrett that you should explore. So yeah, there was the Cologne concert for me, and then I started to get interested in the Standish Trio. So let's have a think about that with the Standish Trio. So yeah, we've got Standards Volume 2 and Standards Volume 1. Now these were, well, if this was records, which I do have on vinyl as well actually, I love these records, these would have been worn out, and I got into vinyl again a bit later on in life, but initially it was the CD purchases for me. So there's some amazing renditions of songs on this, particularly on Standards Volume 1, which has got God Bless the Child on it, which is this amazing 15-minute piece with a great groove. You would think there was an arrangement if you were listening to it, but there isn't. You can tell that it's purely improvised. In fact, they did this recording, and then they did these sessions, and I don't know if I can find it, but I also have another album. They actually managed to record another album in that afternoon, and I think it's called Changes, I think, off the top of my head. I do have it here if I could find it. Yeah, Changes, there we go. So that's so all those 3 albums were all recorded in the same afternoon, which I think is is amazing, really, when you think about it. To record that music, all that body of work in just one afternoon is fantastic. So yeah, I got into the Standish Trios, and then sort of about well, he launched the Standish Trios around 85, so there's some amazing live recordings of the Standish Trio. Let's have a look. So there's some, these are great. So this is fantastic. This is called Still Live, which is absolutely wonderful. Another double album called Tribute, which has an absolutely unbelievable, if you're a jazz pianist, a must check out the version of All the Things You Are on there. This amazing introduction that Keith does is absolutely wonderful. A personal favourite of mine would be an album called The Cure, which has got a little improvised groove that Keith must have been working on. But also on there is Bemshire Swing by Monk, and Things Ain't What They Used to Be by Duke Ellington, and that is a fantastic trio record. There's many more modern trio records. There's this one here called Up For It, which is a fantastic, with some wonderful interpretation of standards like If I Were a Bell and Autumn Leaves and things. And then I'm trying to find one of my favourite ones, and this is quite an unusual one in their catalogue, because this is called Live at the Deer Head Inn, which I would say would be one of my Keith Jarrett Desert Island discs if I had to pick 3 or 4 today. It would probably change if you asked me in a few weeks. But it's unusual. This album's unusual because it's not the normal drummer. It's not the amazing, fantastic Jack DeJohnette. It's actually Paul Motion, or Paul Morton, depending how you pronounce it. And Motion, Jack couldn't do the session. So the Deer Head Inn was owned by this couple, and Keith Jarrett said he would come back and play for them, because at this point he was filling out big concert halls and things. So I think there's only 40-50 people here. Apparently the room was packed out, and so he asked Paul Motion if he could come and do it. So it's kind of just a jam, really, and he got his friend to record the concert for him with the possibility of maybe releasing it, and of course they did. And here we have this Live at the Deer Head Inn, which has got Basin Street Blues, this amazing solo. If you haven't heard it already, there's an absolutely phenomenal solo on Bye Bye Blackbird on this as well. So this is absolutely wonderful. This is Live at the Deer Head Inn. So there's a number of trio records. I could go on and talk about those forever, but they're absolutely fantastic. I've seen the trio a number of times. In fact, I once saw the trio when they recorded this album called Inside Out. So I was at, when was this? 2001, so, or 2000 at the Royal Festival Hall. So I was there for the trio concert for this. They played 2 nights, and this is a collection of those 2 nights, and it's all improvised music. So Jarrett decided not to play standards, although they did play When I Fall in Love at the end, but this is all improvised. And on here is a piece called Inside Out, excuse me, which is absolutely amazing, which is all improvised. It's very goes into a blues. It's amazing. So that is a fantastic record, and I was fortunate enough to be there at that, so I'm pleased that one eventually came out on CD, because I was at that concert. I was also at this concert, not the Paris one but the London one. This album's called Testament, and this was an amazing concert. There's some phenomenal improvisations on here, because we're on to solo piano stuff now with this record. So this is just solo improvised stuff. You know, it's really interesting to hear this music. And in fact, when I was there, although you don't get this on the CD, there was, I think he did 5 encores, and on one of his last encores he came out and this lady just shouted out, "Keith, don't go," and Keith Jarrett said, "I could stay here all night," and we all know, if you're a Keith Jarrett fan, that he can be quite a difficult man to deal with, so that was quite nice to see a sort of softer side to him, because I know he can be quite a difficult artist, and he likes things just so, you know. I mean, we can't talk about the solo stuff without talking about the Sunbear concerts. These concerts that are recorded in Japan, which, for me, Keith was in an amazing creative and spontaneous space. The music is absolutely phenomenal on this. He doesn't repeat himself, yet it kind of sounds like an entire suite. It's absolutely amazing improvisation, and the Japanese audience, of course, are really listening. So that's the Sunbear concerts. I remember saving a lot of pennies to be able to afford that. Gosh, that was a lot of money. might even have really been £100 or something like that. I remember buying it in London. So that's the Sunbear concerts, which is absolutely fantastic. Other personal concerts that I love very much, this is the Vienna concert, and I love the Vienna concert. It's absolutely stunning. It's a beautiful, beautiful improvisation, this long improvisation for around 40 minutes. There's other albums from that period, an album called La Scala, which I also have up there, which is also an album that I listen to a lot. So the solo concerts, there was a recent album called A Multitude of Angels, again, which is, for me, I've stepped back a little bit from the solo concerts of Keith now, because I do my solo improvisations, and mine has developed as a musician, so I don't listen to those as much. So I'm not as close to those recordings of Multitude of Angels. I need to give that some more time, really. I've listened to it, but I need to give it some more listening, really, because I've been involved in doing my own improvised things recently and touring around. So, but the La Scala Vienna concert, absolutely magical performances, and the Sunbear, of course. Speaking of another box set, while we're here, this is the Jarrett Trio Live, which is another one which I had to save a lot of pennies for. You can see there, it's like 6 CDs, I think. Or is it 5? No, 6 CDs. Yeah, 6 CDs, 2 sets per night. That's quite a release, isn't it? That's everything the Jarrett Trio played at the Blue Note in New York, and I love that album. Of course, there's another side to Keith Jarrett as well, which is the classical recordings. So he has recorded quite a few of the Mozart piano concertos. I can't say personally for me that they're some of the greatest versions of things of the Mozart, but there are the Mozart recordings which you could investigate. But there are some wonderful classical recordings for Keith which I really enjoy. Here's the 6 sonatas for violin and piano, which is a recent release, only came out a few years ago, and I love that album, and the interpretations I think are fresh and really beautifully interpreted and delivered, and it's recorded really beautifully. That's absolutely wonderful. He's also recorded Shostakovich, 24 Preludes and Fugues, which I think is very good. It's magical. I think it suits Keith's music. It sounds absolutely fantastic. There's also a body of work from Keith. I'm in a random order here of his older albums, of course. There's things like Somewhere Before Trio here, which is absolutely fantastic. There's some amazing recordings. There's some amazing interpretations of songs on that. The Morning of the Star, amazing album. What else we got? Birth, also some fantastic stuff. A personal favourite of mine of those early periods is Fort Yawa, which I think is amazing. That's a great album worth checking out. So that early body of work is fantastic. There's an album there, isn't it, called Expectations, I think. And then there's the quartet as well, so the American quartet, and then there's this European quartet, the Scandinavian quartet, which created these amazing albums. This one's called Belonging, which is absolutely wonderful. There's quite a few. There's an album called My Song, Personal Mountains, and they're absolutely fantastic. And at the same time, he was running a quartet with Charlie Hayden and Dewey Redman and Paul Motion. And they was running them kind of at the same time, and the music's completely different. For me, I love this European quartet. I love the Dewey Redman stuff as well, but the European quartet I think is absolutely magical. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through the music of Keith Jarrett. He's been a big influence on me, not just as a pianist, but as a musician. The fact that he's continuously searching for new things, and he truly is an improviser. You know, I've seen him play Autumn Leaves a lot of times, and it's always different. You know, and I've seen at some solo concerts, and they're always unique events. And by virtue of the music that he's making, you know, it's not always going to be releasable, you know, because he's looking for something very special. But the music that we have on these recordings is wonderful. I mean, I must say, seeing it live is just even better, of course, because you can't beat that live experience of being ready to see him perform. But Keith is a musician I admire very much. I suppose I had Jarrettitis when I was younger. I was very much all I used to listen to was a lot of his music before I branched out to listen to other artists, which I'll discuss in more videos in the future. So I really do thank Keith Jarrett for all the music he's made. I probably never get to tell him that, but he has been a big influence. His music has shaped a large part of my life, and I've listened to him a lot. So I thank him for that. And if you haven't investigated his music, please do go check out some of these amazing albums that I've mentioned so far in this discussion. So I'm going to do more sort of musical heroes, talking about people that have inspired me and that I admire. So thanks for watching.